there's no evidence that Carter actually planned an October surprise. The hostages were not released, and Reagan won the election.
The real history of the world is a history of competing conspiracy. The real history of the world is a history of competing conspiracy.
Well, there's never been a more humbling moment.
But conspiracy theorists think that Reagan's team did more than just take advantage of the stalemate in the hostage crisis. Some say they had even prolonged it.
The Reagan campaign negotiating illegally and independently with the Iranians not to release the hostages, but to hold the hostages until the election was over, thus ensuring Carter's defeat.
Do I believe that he conspired? I'm talking about Ronald Reagan and George Bush to have this happen? Yes. Were they working with the boys in Iran, the terrorists? Yes.
A second Christmas in captivity for the hostages came round.
Conspiracy theory, no hard facts. One thing is fact.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
On the 20th of January 1981, within hours of Reagan's inauguration, news came from Tehran.
I had received word officially for the first time that the aircraft carrying the 52 American hostages had cleared Iranian airspace on the first leg of a journey home, and that every one of the 52 hostages was alive, was well, and free.
Very funny timing. There's other explanations for it, of course. You know, it could be that the usual explanation is that Ayatollah Khomeini just wanted to humiliate Carter as greatly as he possibly could. Maybe that's true.
The October surprise allegations against Reagan were practically ignored by the U.S. media. But 2 years into President Reagan's second term, a scandal occurred that even Sonny Ronnie couldn't keep out of the press. Again, the United States' enemy number one, Iran, was at the heart of it. Pro-Iranian militants took several Western hostages in the mid-1980s. The hostage nightmare had come back to haunt Reagan. In November '86, a Lebanese magazine claimed that the Reagan administration had sold weapons to Iran in exchange for hostages. The president tried to play it down.
The only thing I know about major shipments of arms, as I've said, everything that we sold them could be put in one cargo plane and there would be plenty of room left over.
Your credibility has been severely damaged. Can you repair it?
It got worse. Not only was the administration selling weapons to Iran, the profits were funding Contras in Nicaragua, who were trying to destabilize the democratically elected Sandinista government.
They weren't supposed to be negotiating with the Iranians, certainly weren't supposed to be selling arms to Iran, which was on our list of terrorist countries. We're not supposed to be funding the Contras. Illegally obtained money was used to fight an illegal war. It was just completely illegal.
There's a lot of things, a lot of dealings that go on in the government that are probably out of the knowledge of most people.
I mean, that was a real conspiracy. You know, and to me, that's a gigantic scandal, far bigger than, almost probably even bigger than Watergate.
With Watergate, there was a direct link to Nixon. With Iran-Contra, no such link to Reagan. But in July 1987, America was riveted to the TV screens to hear the testimony of Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. He was the White House aide in charge of running the Iran-Contra scheme. The main question, did the president know?
I never personally discussed the use of the residuals or profits from the sale of U.S. weapons to Iran for the purpose of supporting the Nicaraguan resistance with the president.
Reagan escaped, but by a whisker. There was no resignation. The arms deals with Iran had started as early as 1985, but they were only reported much later.
I mean, Iran-Contra was not believed until Reagan and his Attorney General came out and admitted that it had happened. It's sort of the government leading the press rather than vice versa.
For some conspiracy theorists, Ronald Reagan's narrow escape proved that he had powerful friends. Were they part of the octopus?
The people that make the covert connections to Khomeini's regime, people that actually sell them the arms and take the money back with them, these are the people who make up the octopus.
So why had the so-called octopus let Reagan survive? Some say his tough anti-communist stance was far more in line with their own agenda. And in another twist, conspiracy theorists claimed that another political figure became ensnared in the octopus.
Governor Clinton's office.
Shipments to the Contras left without hindrance from the home turf of future President Bill Clinton. Could this have brought Clinton closer to the presidency?
I remember during that election they had what they were called the Seven Dwarfs. There were 7 different very viable candidates for the Democratic spot, and it goes to Clinton, the only one of all 7 who had this direct role in making sure that this particular aspect of the Iran-Contra thing never surfaced.
Before the book was closed on the Iran-Contra conspiracies, a final chapter was added. A Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter uncovered a link between the CIA, the Contras, and L.A. drug dealers. He was quickly dismissed as a conspiracy theorist.
What I had written was that these crack dealers in South Central L.A. were working with the Contras to finance the Contra War. What the spin was that I was alleging a conspiracy by the CIA to flood black neighborhoods with crack, which is never what the story said. But that was the tact the government and the media took to try to knock this down. And I found myself defending myself against things that I had never said. I was called a conspiracy theorist. I was called a Sandinista sympathizer. I was called a defender of drug traffickers. I was called just about every name in the book.
Eventually, Webb's own paper withdrew the story, a move that was seen as confirming Webb's facts were flawed.
I was very disappointed. I was very discouraged. I was very angry. And I went public and I said, my editors are nuts, essentially.
But 2 years later, the CIA went public with some interesting facts. It took Gary Webb over 2 years to feel vindicated. Over 2 years in which he was written off as a conspiracy theorist. With the arrival of the Internet, the hope of controlling the news agenda and discrediting journalists for years has become much more difficult. Bill Clinton's presidency felt the full effect of it.
What was once rumor is now spread instantly in the flash of a few seconds. And people like Matt Drudge.
My name is Matt Drudge.
His website.
I published the Drudge Report.
His website became crucial to making what would have taken months to trickle down happen in minutes.
There certainly is room for people who are just citizens to report and to have commentary.
Matt Drudge reports breaking stories throughout the world and played a major role in the biggest Clinton scandals.
Within days of the rumor even surfacing about Monica Lewinsky, Matt Drudge was on the internet saying that there was a stained dress, that there had been late-night sexual telephone calls, that unbelievably naff gifts and presents had been exchanged, and he had the chronology right as well, and every single one of those details did turn out to be true.
If this story ends up bringing down a president, and if it started in my